Christmas is supposed to smell like pine needles and sugar cookies. It's supposed to sound like laughter drifting from the kitchen, someone burning the gravy, someone else telling the same story for the 10th year in a row. Instead, Christmas became the day my life quietly split in two. I was in the middle of carving the turkey when my boyfriend's mother touched my arm. Not a grab, just firm enough to make it clear this wasn't optional. "Come with me," she said. The way she said it made my stomach drop, like she'd been rehearsing the words for months. The garage was dim and smelled faintly of oil and dust. She shut the door behind us and leaned back against it, staring at the concrete floor like she was bracing herself. Her hands shook when she unlocked her phone. "I like you," she said finally. "You seem good. And because of that, I need to show you something." She opened a folder. Police reports. Plural. I remember thinking there had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding, anything other than what my eyes were seeing as I scrolled. Different years, different names, the same pattern. 4 documented cases in 5 years. My fingers went cold around her phone. From inside the house, I could hear laughter, his dad probably telling the same dumb holiday joke, while I stood there realizing my boyfriend wasn't who I thought he was. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. Her voice cracked. "Because I can't watch you become number 5. Inside, everything looked exactly the same as it had an hour earlier. Tree lights glowed. Plates were passed around. My boyfriend sat beside me, smiling, touching my arm like nothing in the world was wrong. And all I could think was this. If his own mother was warning me, what didn't I know yet? That night, lying awake beside him, listening to his breathing, I realized something terrifying. I hadn't fallen in love. I'd walked straight into a pattern, and I was already in the middle of it. Before the garage, before the police reports, before Christmas split my life into before and after, there was the version of us that made sense. I met Nate at a networking event my company practically forced us to attend. One of those beige hotel ballrooms with bad lighting and watered-down wine, where everyone pretends to care about each other's job titles. I was standing at the bar, counting the minutes until I could leave, when he stepped in beside me, like he already belonged there. He didn't use a pickup line. He just started talking about how ridiculous the event was, how much he hated forced networking, about me, my job, my opinions, the way I rolled my eyes when the keynote speaker said synergy for the 5th time. I laughed, not politely, actually laughed. Nate was charming in a way that felt effortless. Direct eye contact, easy confidence, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room once he focused on you, and he focused on me immediately. By the end of the night, we were sitting closer than strangers should, knees brushing, voices low. When he asked for my number, it didn't feel rushed. It felt obvious. From the beginning, everything accelerated. Good morning texts before I was fully awake, long phone calls at night that stretched until my ear hurt, plans layered on top of plans. He told me he'd never felt this kind of connection before, told me I was different, told me he wasn't someone who rushed into things, but with me, it just felt right. I believed him, because I wanted to. Within weeks, he was staying over. At first, just weekends, then Sunday nights. Then suddenly it felt strange when he wasn't there. A jacket appeared on the back of my chair. A toothbrush showed up in my bathroom. A charger lived permanently by my bed. At 6 months, he was basically living with me. I remember hesitating, saying maybe we should slow down, maybe we didn't need to rush cohabiting. His reaction caught me off guard. He didn't argue, he didn't push. He got emotional. He told me his previous living situation had been toxic, that his roommate situation had fallen apart, that being with me felt safe, stable, like home. His voice cracked when he said it, like he hated showing vulnerability. I told myself compassion wasn't the same as being naive, so I let him stay. He learned my routines quickly, my passwords, because I trusted him, my schedule, because he wanted to sync lives. He knew when I got off work, when I was exhausted, when I was most open. If I made plans with friends without him, he didn't yell. He withdrew, acted hurt, quiet. "I just miss you," he'd say. And somehow I'd cancel. He talked about the future constantly. Houses, marriage, retirement accounts. He asked questions that felt flattering at the time. How much I made, how I budgeted, where I wanted to buy property. When I hesitated, he laughed it off. "I'm just thinking out loud," he'd say. "I'm serious about you." I met his family not long after. Holidays, dinners, familiar chaos. His dad cracked the same jokes every year. His sister Kelsey barely looked up from her phone. His mother Diane was polite but reserved, watchful in a way I couldn't quite place. I assumed she just didn't know me yet. Christmas that year felt important, like a milestone, proof that we were solid. I helped cook, made conversation, let myself imagine this becoming permanent. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that I wasn't stepping into something new. I was stepping into a pattern, one that had already swallowed other people whole. Looking back, the signs were always there. They just didn't look like warnings at the time. They looked like intensity, passion, commitment. Nate was always present. He wanted to know where I was, what I was doing, who I was with. Did you get home safe? Who were you out with again? Text me when you're done. I'll stay up. At first, it felt flattering, like someone finally cared enough to notice the details of my life. But slowly those details started to narrow. If I went out without him, his mood shifted. He didn't accuse. He didn't forbid. He just became distant. It's nothing, he'd say. I just miss you. And suddenly I was apologizing. I didn't see it as control. I saw it as emotional sensitivity. He framed everything as vulnerability. If I hesitated about finances or pace, he looked genuinely hurt. I thought we were building a life together, he'd say softly. I just want to feel secure with you. Secure, that word came up a lot. He asked about my bank accounts under the guise of planning, about my credit score because he was learning. When I mentioned my retirement savings once, he remembered it weeks later, smiling like it was a shared dream. You're so responsible, he said. It makes me feel safe. There were moments that made my stomach tighten, small ones I brushed off immediately, like how quickly he needed access to everything, my laptop, my phone, my email, just in case something happened. When I hesitated, he laughed. Wow, he said lightly. You really don't trust me, huh? So I handed things over, because I didn't want to be that person. The night before Christmas, I stood in the bathroom brushing my teeth, watching him scroll through my phone like it was his. I felt a quick flash of discomfort. Then he smiled at me in the mirror. I just love knowing everything about you, he said. And I smiled back. I had no idea that by then, the pattern had already locked into place. And I was about to find out how much of my life he already controlled without ever raising his voice once. Christmas Day started out deceptively normal. The house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon. Plates clinked. Laughter drifted from the living room, while Nate's father launched into his annual story about the turkey disaster of '98. Kelsey was on her phone, half listening, half smiling at something on her screen. I was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, trying to carve a turkey that was far too big for my confidence level, when Diane touched my arm. Not a grab, just firm. Come with me, she said quietly. I looked at her. Now? Yes. There was something in her voice that made my stomach tighten. She didn't wait for an answer. She turned and walked toward the door leading into the garage. I wiped my hands on a towel and followed. The garage was colder than the house, the concrete floor biting through my shoes. Diane pulled the door down behind us. The sound echoed, final. She leaned back against it and closed her eyes for a second like she was bracing herself. I need you to listen, she said. My heart started racing. Okay. She pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to steady them against the workbench. I like you, she said. You're good. And because of that, I need to show you something I should have shown you a long time ago. She unlocked her phone and opened a folder. Police reports. More than one. Please, she said softly, read them. The first report was dated 2019. A restraining order filed by a woman named Emily. Harassment. Hundreds of texts in a single day after Emily tried to break up with Nate. Nate showing up repeatedly at her workplace, waiting outside her apartment, keying her car in the parking lot when she stopped responding. My throat tightened. There has to be context, I said automatically. She told us there was, Diane replied quietly. She said Emily was unstable, obsessed. We believed her. I scrolled. A domestic disturbance call. A woman named Lauren. Lauren claimed Nate came at her with a lamp during an argument. Nate called 911 first and reported that Lauren had attacked him. The case was dismissed after Lauren's roommates testified that Nate had been the aggressor and Lauren never touched him. Diane swallowed hard. We paid for anger management classes after that. My hands felt numb. Another report. A woman named Melissa. Credit card fraud. Nate had opened multiple credit cards in Melissa's name, run up over $8,000 in debt, and destroyed her credit. Charges were filed. The case was settled out of court after Diane and her husband paid restitution, nearly $10,000 including legal fees. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. One more. A restraining order filed by a woman named Rebecca. Nate had been sleeping with the man Rebecca was dating. When Rebecca confronted him, Nate went after her instead, slashed her tires, sent threatening messages. posted her address and phone number online. 4 reports. 4 women, 5 years. Inside the house, someone laughed loudly. The sound felt wrong, too normal, too distant. There were others, Diane said, women who didn't report, who just disappeared, changed numbers, moved cities. I finally looked up at her. Why are you telling me this now? She scrolled to another screen. A text conversation between Nate and Kelsey from 2 weeks ago. Nate. She's so easy to manipulate. Nate. LOL. She believes everything I say. Nate. Already talking about her retirement account and where she wants to buy a house. Nate. And I got that credit card I wanted. Kelsey. Be careful. You know your pattern. Nate. It's different this time. I'm in control. She's not going anywhere. I read it once. Then again. My chest felt tight, easy to manipulate. She's done this before, Diane said quietly. Finds a woman who's kind, stable, moves fast, gets her emotionally and financially invested, and when that woman starts setting boundaries or seeing clearly, she destroys her. Does Nate know you're showing me this? I asked. Diane shook her head. No, and I don't care anymore. I can't watch him do this again. She met my eyes. I'm his mother. I love him, but he refuses help. The only thing I can do is warn you. Her voice broke. Get out before you become number 5. The garage felt too small. My heart was pounding so hard it made my vision blur. From inside the house, someone called my name. I walked back in, sat beside Nate, watched him laugh, and touch my arm like nothing in the world was wrong. And all I could think was this. I was sitting next to a man who had destroyed 4 women's lives. And according to his own words, I was next. I don't remember tasting the food after that. I remember lifting my fork, chewing, swallowing, smiling when someone spoke to me, nodding at the right moments. My body moved on autopilot while my mind stayed locked in that garage, staring at a screen full of dates and names and patterns I couldn't unsee. Nate sat beside me, relaxed, affectionate. His knee brushed mine under the table. His hand rested on my back when he laughed, fingers warm and familiar. Every touch felt wrong now, calculated, rehearsed. Easy to manipulate. The words replayed over and over, like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. At one point, he leaned over and whispered, You okay? You went quiet. I'm just tired, I said quickly. He frowned. Do you want to leave early? There it was again, control disguised as concern. I shook my head. No, I'm fine. I wasn't fine. My chest felt tight, my pulse uneven. I kept watching his face, waiting to see cracks, signs, anything that matched the man in those reports. But he was perfect. That night, after gifts were opened and hugs exchanged, he handed me a box. Inside was an expensive watch, far more than we'd agreed to spend. You didn't have to do this, I said. I wanted to, he replied, smiling. You deserve nice things. Later, I'd discover he'd used my credit card, the one I'd given him for emergencies. But that night, I just nodded and thanked him, my stomach churning. We drove home in silence. His hand rested on my thigh, thumb tracing slow, comforting circles. I stared out the window, watching Christmas lights blur past, wondering how long I'd been living inside a lie. In bed, he fell asleep quickly. I didn't. I lay there, listening to his breathing, counting the seconds between inhales. Every memory rearranged itself in my mind, clicking into a shape I didn't like. The way he'd pushed to move in, the tantrum he'd thrown when I suggested waiting, the tears, the apologies, how quickly he'd learned my passwords, how he'd asked for my social security number for insurance paperwork, how he'd freaked out any time I made plans without him. I'd told myself it was love, passion, intensity. Now I saw it for what it was, a system. The next morning, I didn't confront him. I didn't cry. I didn't accuse. I acted normal. I kissed him goodbye, told him I had to go into the office for an emergency project. He hugged me tight, told me he loved me, watched me leave with the same trusting smile he always wore. Instead of going to work, I drove to a Starbucks and sat there for 3 hours with a notebook and my phone. I made lists, passwords he knew, accounts we shared, documents he'd touched, moments that felt wrong. Then I called my older brother, Trevor. He picked up on the second ring. What's wrong? I told him everything. The garage, the police reports, the texts, the pattern. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said very carefully, before you do anything, before you break up with him or confront him, you need to protect yourself legally. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Look at the reports, he said. He accused women of attacking him when they tried to leave. If you confront him without protection, he could make false accusations. And once that starts, it's very hard to stop. Fear slid cold down my spine. So what do I do? He gave me a plan. Cameras, legal ones, change every password, pull my credit report, screenshot everything, document before I said a word. Protect yourself first, Trevor said. Then end it, because based on that pattern, he won't let go quietly. I spent the rest of the day following his instructions. Ordered small cameras for next day delivery. Changed every password, email, bank, social media, streaming services. Pulled my credit report. Clean, thank God. But while backing up my messages, I found something else. A text from 2 months ago when I'd gone to a conference. What if something happens to you and we're not married? I wouldn't even be notified. We should fix that. At the time, I'd thought it was sweet. Now my hands started shaking. He wasn't worried about losing me. He was worried about access. And I finally understood something that made my stomach twist. I hadn't overreacted. I had woken up just in time. The cameras arrived the next afternoon. Small, black, easy to hide. I installed them while Nate was at work. One angled toward the living room, one covering the kitchen. Not the bedroom, not the bathroom. Trevor had been very clear about that. Legal mattered now. Precision mattered. Every movement I made felt unreal, like I was playing a role in someone else's life. I kept expecting my phone to buzz with a text from Nate asking why I was home early. It didn't. By the time he walked through the door that evening, everything was in place. He kissed me hello, asked about my day, set his bag down like nothing had shifted under our feet. I made pasta, simple, familiar, the kind of dinner that had always meant normal for us. He talked about work, showed me something funny on Instagram, laughed easily. I watched him like a stranger. Every smile felt rehearsed, every word carefully placed, and behind it all, that line kept echoing in my head. She's not going anywhere. After dinner, I dried my hands on a towel and said it. We need to talk. The change was instant. Not confusion, not concern. A blankness crossed his face, like a mask slipping. About what? He asked. My conversation with your mom, on Christmas. The temperature in the room dropped so fast it felt physical. He went completely still. She talked to you? Yes. What did she say? His voice was flat now, controlled. She showed me police reports, I said. 4 of them. His eyes sharpened. She had no right. They involved 4 different women, Nate. He stood up abruptly and started pacing. Those were misunderstandings. She's always exaggerated everything. 4 misunderstandings? I asked quietly. Yes, he snapped. Emily was obsessed with me. Lauren was abusive, and I defended myself. Melissa said I could use her credit, and Rebecca was stalking me first. Every story placed him in the center as the victim. Every woman unstable, dangerous, lying. What about the text you sent Kelsey? I asked. Where you called me easy to manipulate? He froze mid-step. Silence stretched between us. She showed you private conversations? He said slowly. Yes. That was a joke, he said quickly. You're taking it out of context. Kelsey and I talk like that all the time. What context makes that okay? My voice shook despite my effort to keep it steady. Suddenly the tears came, fast, like a switch flipped. I can't believe you're doing this, he said, voice breaking. Attacking me over lies from my toxic mother. She's always tried to sabotage my relationships. I saw the reports, I said, official documents, case numbers. They were all lies, he shouted. Every single one. Those women were abusive or unstable, and they lied to the police. He grabbed his jacket. I need space. I can't deal with this right now. He slammed the door behind him. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. We're done. I can't be with someone who doesn't trust me. I stared at the screen. My heart was pounding, but underneath it, something else crept in. Relief. An hour later, another text. I'm sorry. I overreacted. Can we please talk? I love you. Then another. Please don't give up on us. Then another. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I need you. 15 messages in 2 hours. I didn't respond. At 11 that night, the door opened. I'm so sorry, he said immediately, tears streaming. I panicked. My mom has always been emotionally abusive, and when you believed her over me, it triggered everything. He reached for me. I stepped back. I think we need a break, I said. A break? His voice cracked. No, we don't need a break. We love each other. We can work through this. It's not about your mom, I said. It's about the pattern. They were all lying, he said desperately. Or maybe, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, you're the common denominator. His face twisted, anger flashing through the cracks. Get out, he said suddenly. This is my apartment. Our apartment, I corrected, and you're not on the lease. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You're kicking me out? I'm saying we need space, I said. You can stay with Kelsey for a few days. He laughed, low and sharp. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. As he grabbed his bag, he leaned close and said, almost too quietly to hear, You have no idea what I'm capable of. The door slammed. I stood there, shaking, my heart racing. Then I called an emergency locksmith. It cost almost $200 at midnight. Worth every penny. Because for the first time since Christmas, I wasn't frozen. I was moving. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this wasn't over. I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. I lay on the couch fully dressed, lights on, phone in my hand, listening for every sound in the hallway. Every passing car made my pulse spike. Every creak of the building made my muscles tense. I kept replaying his last words. You have no idea what I'm capable of. At 2 a.m, the locksmith finished installing the new locks. The click of the deadbolt sliding into place should have made me feel safer. It didn't. It just made everything feel real. When the sun finally came up, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Nate's attorney. You have illegally locked my client out of his residence. He requires immediate access to his belongings and to resume residency. Failure to comply will result in legal action. My hands shook as I read it. I called Trevor immediately. He laughed. Actually laughed. That's not a lawyer, he said. No attorney text from a random personal number. Don't respond. So I didn't. By mid-morning, the messages started pouring in from different numbers. You can't do this. This is illegal. I have rights. Please, baby. I love you. You're going to regret this. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I blocked every number. At work, I tried to focus. I really did. But my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Eventually, my manager appeared at my desk, concern etched across her face. 2 police officers are here asking for you. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. This was it. This was the moment Trevor had warned me about. In the conference room, the officers explained why they were there. A domestic dispute, a lockout, a complaint. I handed them everything, my lease with only my name on it, the texts where Nate left voluntarily, the screenshots, the timeline. I explained about the police reports his mother had shown me. The older officer sighed, rubbing his temples. Even if he's not on the lease, if he's lived there over 3 months, tenancy may apply. My heart sank. He can retrieve his belongings with a police escort, the younger officer added, but you'll need to provide written notice, usually 30 days. After they left, my boss pulled me aside. I believe you, she said gently, but we can't have police showing up here. Take a few personal days. Keep this separate from work. I nodded, fighting back tears. 3 days. That's how long it took for my life to start unraveling. Trevor drafted a formal 30-day notice and arranged a police-supervised pickup. I sent Nate a single text from a new number. You can collect your belongings Wednesday evening. Police will be present. The reply came immediately, from yet another number. I'm not leaving. That's my home too. And you owe me $3,200. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Wednesday evening arrived like a storm. Nate showed up with Kelsey and 2 men I'd never seen before. Big, silent, clearly meant to intimidate. 2 police officers stood by, bored expressions on their faces. I'll need at least 3 hours, Nate announced. And I'm taking the TV. The TV I bought 2 years ago, I said. Community property, he snapped. The officer intervened. Receipts were shown. The TV stayed. Nate packed slowly, deliberately. Kept trying to talk to me. Remember the beach? What about our plans? You're really doing this? I didn't respond. After they left, the apartment felt wrong. Empty, in a way that wasn't peaceful. I checked the cameras. He'd gone into the bathroom. When I checked the cabinet, my stomach dropped. My anxiety medication was gone. 30 pills, just refilled. I watched the footage. There he was, taking the bottle, slipping it into his bag. I called Trevor, voice shaking. That's theft, he said. File a police report immediately. That night, I sat alone on my couch, surrounded by silence and paperwork and fear. He had my medication. He had my address. He had my routines. And for the first time since this started, the thought hit me fully, brutally clear. I wasn't just dealing with a breakup. I was dealing with someone who wanted to punish me for leaving. The police station smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. I sat in a plastic chair, hands folded so tightly in my lap my fingers ached, while an officer typed up the report. Theft of prescription medication. I kept repeating the words in my head, like if I said them enough times they'd stop sounding surreal. Do you have proof? The officer asked, already half expecting the answer. Yes, I said, and slid my phone across the desk. He watched the footage once, then again. His posture changed the second time through. Send this to this email, he said. We'll attach it to the report. When I walked back out into the cold night air, something inside me shifted. Not relief, not peace. Clarity. The next morning, the building manager called. Ms. Hayes, we've received a complaint that you've been harassing another tenant, making threats. I laughed before I could stop myself. A short, broken sound. He doesn't live here anymore, I said, and I'm the one being harassed. I explained everything. The police reports, the supervised pickup, the stolen medication. I forwarded the report and the footage. There was a pause. Well, the manager said slowly, we'll make a note of your side of things. That same night, I walked out to the parking lot and saw my car. Deep scratches ran down the entire driver's side, fresh, angry. No cameras in that section, of course not. $500 deductible. I stood there staring at the damage, my breath fogging in the cold, and felt something snap. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The next email came from a real lawyer. Letterhead, office address, formal language. Demands for money, for shared expenses, for emotional damages, for property he claimed I'd kept. Trevor read it once and scoffed. This is phishing, he said. No proof, no receipts, no case. He responded on my behalf. Firm, clean, final. Any further contact would result in a restraining order. The silence afterward felt ominous. Then the bank called. Suspicious charges, hotels, restaurants, online shopping, over $2,000. The credit card, the one I'd given him. Fraud report filed, card frozen. Maybe I'd get the money back, maybe not. I didn't even care anymore. The final blow came at work. An HR meeting request, mandatory. I sat across from my manager and the HR representative while they explained the complaint. Anonymous. Accusations of stalking. Threats, abuse. Every claim inverted, every lie carefully designed. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I pulled out my folder. Texts, reports, video footage, timelines, screenshots, evidence stacked neatly, methodically. As they read, their expressions changed. When the meeting ended, my manager squeezed my shoulder. I believe you, she said, but you need to protect yourself. That night, Trevor came over with takeout and a decision. We're filing for a restraining order, he said. You have enough, more than enough. We laid everything out on my dining table. 4 past police reports, the theft footage, the fraudulent charges, the false complaints, the car damage, the messages from multiple numbers. Seeing it all together was horrifying and empowering. The next morning we filed. When Nate found out, the message came fast. You're going to regret this. I'm the victim. Everyone will know what you did. I didn't respond. For the first time since Christmas, I wasn't reacting. I was acting. And no matter what happened next, one truth had finally settled into my bones. I wasn't powerless anymore. The hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. 6 days. 6 days of waiting felt longer than the entire relationship. I barely slept. My appetite disappeared. Every notification on my phone sent a jolt through my chest. I jumped at footsteps in the hallway. I checked the locks 3 times before bed, then once more for good measure. Nate didn't stay quiet. The morning after he was served, my phone lit up from a new number. You filed a restraining order against me? After everything you did? I didn't respond. An hour later, you're twisting the truth. I'm the victim here. I'm going to make sure everyone knows. By noon, my Facebook was exploding. He posted a long, emotional story. No names, but detailed enough that anyone who knew us would recognize it immediately. An abusive ex, a woman who threw him out with no notice, a woman who stole his things and was now trying to silence him with legal threats. The comments flooded in. So brave for speaking up. You didn't deserve this. Stay strong. My hands shook as I scrolled. People I barely knew weighed in confidently. People I trusted stayed silent. I didn't comment. I screenshot everything and saved it into the folder labeled Court. By the end of the day, 5 friends had texted me. Is this about you? I don't want to take sides, but this seems really intense. Some believed me, some didn't. A few said they were staying neutral, which somehow hurt more than disbelief. The hearing arrived quietly. No spectacle, no drama, just a gray morning and a courthouse that smelled like old paper and stale air. I wore a simple suit, neutral, controlled. Trevor met me outside with his briefcase, calm as always. Nate arrived with Kelsey and a man I didn't recognize, no attorney. The judge was young, efficient, and visibly tired. The kind of person who'd seen this exact scenario dozens of times already this month. Trevor presented our case methodically. The 4 police reports from Nate's previous relationships. The video footage of him stealing my prescription medication during the supervised pickup, the credit card fraud report, the false complaints filed with my workplace and apartment management, the threatening messages sent from multiple phone numbers, the photos of my vandalized car. The courtroom was silent, except for the rustle of paper. When it was Nate's turn, he represented himself. He said the reports were misunderstandings, that his exes were unstable, that I told him he could take the medication, that I gave him permission to use my credit card. Then he started crying. "I'm the victim," he said. "She's older, she has money. She manipulated me into moving in and then threw me out when I wouldn't do what she wanted." The implication was clear. Trevor stood immediately. "Your Honor, that is a serious allegation with absolutely no evidence, he said. "It aligns with a documented pattern of retaliation used against previous partners. We have a sworn statement from the respondent's own mother describing this behavior." The judge reviewed the footage again. "Mr. Reeves," she said evenly, "in this video, you are clearly seen taking a prescription bottle and placing it in your bag. What evidence do you have that you were given permission to do so?" Nate stumbled over his words, changed direction, claimed the video had been edited. The judge shook her head. "The timestamp is continuous. There is no indication of editing." She reviewed the file in silence for several minutes. Then she looked up. "I am granting a 1-year restraining order." My breath caught. "No contact of any kind," she continued. "No in-person contact, no calls, no texts, no emails, no social media, and no third-party contact. You must remain at least 100 yards away from the petitioner's residence and workplace. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." Nate stood abruptly. "This is insane. She's lying." "The evidence speaks for itself," the judge replied calmly. "I am also referring the theft of prescription medication to the prosecutor's office for review." That ended it. Outside the courtroom, Nate lost control, yelling, pacing, accusing. Kelsey tried to calm him down while the man they brought stared at the floor, visibly uncomfortable. Trevor walked me to my car. "You're protected now," he said. "That's what matters." I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. The fallout didn't end with the ruling. I was out thousands of dollars. Locksmith fees, legal costs, car repairs. Some friendships didn't survive. My reputation at work took a hit, even though I'd done nothing wrong. My manager was supportive, but cautious. The apartment didn't feel like home anymore. Too many memories, too many echoes. I started planning my exit. 4 months left on the lease. That night, I received a text from Diane. "I heard what happened in court. I'm so sorry. Thank you for protecting yourself. I should have warned you sooner." I replied slowly. "You probably saved my life. Thank you." She told me Nate was being forced into intensive therapy, or she would cut him off financially. At least someone in that family finally drew a line. As for Nate, I didn't know what happened to him after that day. And for the first time, I didn't need to. When everything finally went quiet, I expected relief. What I felt instead was exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep fixes. The kind that settles into your bones after weeks of holding your breath, of bracing for the next hit, of learning how quickly someone can try to dismantle your life when they realize they've lost control. The restraining order didn't magically repair the damage. It didn't refund the money. It didn't undo the whispers at work or the friends who pulled away because the story felt too complicated. It didn't give me my apartment back. The place felt haunted by routines that were no longer mine. Every corner held a memory I didn't ask for. I counted down the months until my lease ended and started planning my exit, not as a retreat, but as a reset. I started therapy. The first session, I couldn't even tell the story straight. My thoughts jumped. My hands shook. I kept minimizing, apologizing, like I was still trying to prove I wasn't dramatic. The therapist stopped me. "You were targeted," she said gently. "That's not a personal failure." That sentence cracked something open in me. Because here's the truth I'd been avoiding. This didn't happen because I was weak. It happened because I was trusting. Because I believed people when they told me who they were. I learned that love isn't supposed to feel like constant vigilance. That care doesn't require access to your passwords, your finances, your silence. That urgency isn't intimacy, it's a tactic. I learned to listen to my body again. The tightness in my chest. The moments of hesitation I used to override because I didn't want to seem unkind. My intuition had been whispering long before my mind caught up. And I learned something else, something uncomfortable but necessary. When someone's own parent pulls you aside and risks losing their child just to warn you, you listen. Parents know patterns, especially the ones they've been quietly cleaning up for years. I don't know what happened to Nate after the court date. I know there were consequences, legal ones, financial ones, and maybe, eventually, emotional ones. But my story didn't end with his downfall. It ended with my survival. I'm rebuilding slowly, carefully, with boundaries that used to scare me but now feel like freedom. I froze my credit, changed my number, learned how to say no without explaining. Dating will come later, trust will come slower. And that's okay, because getting out didn't make me bitter. It made me awake. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Document everything. Protect yourself legally before you confront someone with a history of retaliation. And never ignore a warning just because it comes wrapped in family and holidays. I thought I was different. Turns out I was just number 5. And walking away, scarred, tired, but free, was the win.